All us Bible-believing people know that money is the root of all evil. Any of you theologians out there, please check me on that. Get back to me. Let me know if that's correct or not. Yes, we're presenting the betting lines here at the Voice of College Football. And again, check that one out because it's often misquoted. An interesting sideline there to our discussion today. I just had an interesting conversation with my kids about this just the other day regarding investments. So whether you're just a hardcore college football fan or a part-time investment planner or just all about a bit of a entertainment aspect on the side, we welcome you in for the next, I don't know. We'll see how long the conversation goes here at the Voice of College Football. Checking out those betting lines for 2021 that were released just a couple days ago. And I should have, and probably, I should have jumped on this just a couple days ago, but it's still a hot topic around college football. The betting lines that were released again, just I believe on Wednesday, because we discussed them on the Ohio State Live show concerning the Buckeyes versus Michigan, Oregon, and possibly another line mixed in there as well. And would certainly like to get your thoughts as we will start with week one and head on through. I appreciate everybody jumping on here with short notice. This is graduation weekend. You know that? My daughter's graduating tomorrow. So family in town, a lot of festivities. So I didn't know how much I would be able to talk to all of you, but we've got a window of time here. So again, I appreciate your flexibility. We are here to talk college football with you, and I didn't necessarily know that this was going to happen. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll have a good time chopping up the betting lines, courtesy FanDuel and the various Vegas sports books. So let's go to the live chat, and then we'll start with week one. We've got Scott on the line. Raining on Lake Conroe. MarkRogersTV, not a bad way to spend a Saturday afternoon. Good to see you, Mark, as always. Hook 'em. Scott, I'm going to run through the Texas betting lines that have been released, and I expect to post a video over on the Texas channel here. And want to remind everyone that we've got team-specific channels, and this is more important going forward than it's ever been. So from a couple days ago on into the future, much more important that if you love a particular team, that you lock in on our team-specific channels, because this is going to be, as of just a few days ago, and is forevermore until the strategy would change, possibly. This is the College Football National channel for the Voice of College Football, and we've got our team-specific channels, so check out those. So if you love a particular team, again, please subscribe on that team-specific channel. And if you don't, if it's a team that we don't provide a channel for, let me know that you would like that channel. And we'll see what we can do. If it can be supported, then we will open up another channel, or you're going to have to keep it locked in right here, and we will get to your team as best we can. We got, again, Scott on the line. Good to see you. Glad that we could provide a bit of a respite, as I would like to get you back out on the lake, Scott. It's near summertime, and it's that time of year to be soaking up the sun, as I enjoy doing myself. So we will hopefully make it a good time for you until you can get back out on the lake. And we got Lewis right here. Mickelson up by 4 after 10 holes in the third round of, I have no idea what's going on this weekend in golf. I used to be a guy that would watch the final round of the majors. That's about as hardcore as I got. Not that I wouldn't check out 20 minutes on Thursday and 15 minutes on Friday, but I was basically a flipping on for the back 9 on Sunday for the majors. And come to think of it, just because I saw a tweet from Peter Burns this week about the PGA Championship that he is working, the PGA Championship, that I believe that is the major going on this weekend, but I've not seen anybody hit a golf ball probably in 10 years at least. All right, Phil, good to see you. Good to see you. And we will see how much Florida State pops up in our rundown of the betting lines. Cheryl's here. Mr. HD's here. Hey, Cheryl. Good to see you as always. Mr. HD as well. It's just me, Tim, 79. Poetry. Jobo, when we going to get that Vanderbilt channel, Mark? Best program in college football. When I get the, I'm going to put our bar at $5,000 donation. $5,000 donation equals a Vandy channel and weekly Vandy live streams. Bam. Oh, Pigskin. Good to see you, man. Good to see you, Pete. Hope all is well. And I got to say that I wrote that title, not necessarily that I had outrageous betting lines in mind, but I did see some over-unders that I thought were a bit outrageous, and I'm expecting to see maybe a couple betting lines that I think are a bit out there. We will see as we filter our way through this. I'm not big on preparation, so it's not like I've looked at these betting lines. I'm not the guy that's working 45 minutes to prepare for one of these live streams. Working hard for you always, but not in that way. Just me, 1079. You can't be serious, right? Right? McDee's in the house, and Pete's checking out the PGA Championship. Mickelson. So does that mean, Lewis, that Mickelson is actually in the lead? If that's the case, then maybe I get a little bit interested in the PGA Championship, because that's actually a name on the leaderboard that I would know. I've heard of Justin Thomas. I couldn't pick him out of a lineup. If Justin Thomas walked into my living room right now, be like, can I help you? Yeah. What's golf? I don't know. I appreciate the skill. And, but past Jack Nicklaus and rooting for Jack Nicklaus when I was like 12 years old, it's not really grabbed my attention since. I remember back in Tiger's heyday, people would say, you either love Tiger or you hate Tiger. And my response was always, no, I'm I'm the guy right in the middle. I don't care about Tiger. I don't dislike the guy, don't love the guy, don't really care. All right, so good to see everybody. Let's crank it up with week one. Oh, look at that. It's just me, Tim, 79. We're halfway home for that Vanderbilt channel. And I will wear my black and gold every day for Vandy football. Hey, if that $5,000 comes through to get our Vandy channel up and running. Oh, I think we've got a good Jack Nicklaus story coming up here from Scott before we dive into the football. 1986. As soon as I saw that year, Scott, I knew exactly where you were going. First year out of college. I'm in Akron, Ohio. Scott, you're in Akron, Ohio in 1986? You were like 15 minutes away from me. Wow. We could have had a nice little outing there. Living in a hotel, ordering room service, and watching the final round of the 86 Masters, the Golden Bear. Yes, leaving bear tracks everywhere. I remember being out with my friends that day, doing whatever. When I was out, whatever. I was out at the lake or playing ball, whatever I was doing. I remember I was outside because Jack Nicklaus was not a factor. He was not even listed on the leaderboard after Saturday. I believe Nick Faldo, was it Sevi Ballesteros? I think it was Nick Faldo had a big lead going into the final round, and the Golden Bear came out of nowhere. And when I got home and flipped on SportsCenter and saw that Jack Nicklaus won the Masters, I was ecstatic. All right, Sue's here. Good to see Sue. Sue, thank you so much for sharing the content out there, watching and listening. Sanding jewelry. Now, that's something you could have given me 1,000 guesses on what you were doing this afternoon, Sue. And sanding jewelry, sanding some furniture might have come up, about 100 selections before that. But not that. All right. Marlins baseball's the choice for Phil B. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, let's get to it, folks. Remind everyone that we've got team channels, so lock it in on your favorite team. Patreon, 16 cents per day. Watch parties, my picks, and of course, exclusive live streams per request. And of course, Amazon, shop at Amazon. Use the link in the description section, and I will take your calls as soon as I do the obligatory point toward the ticker and say, when you shop Amazon, use the link in the description section. All right. I know you guys get tired of hearing that. All right. And then we'll change over to 860-499-3332. All right. Let's start with week one. And I don't have my contacts in, meaning I got to blow up this screen. All right. Right out of the gate, a fairly big game in the ACC Coastal Division, even though everybody's talking about North Carolina and to a lesser extent Miami, and we would all expect that to be the game of the year, the ACC Coastal. Don't forget about Virginia Tech. These two teams, the last two seasons, played colossal shootouts. They played a 6 overtime game 2 years ago, and they got the score up into the 50s and 40s last year with the Heels winning. They're a 6-point favorite on the road in Blacksburg, but going to Blacksburg, we don't have time destination, or do we have a, oh man, you're going to make me try to figure out what time these games are played. I believe it's a primetime game in week one, again, with North Carolina is taking on Virginia Tech, 6.5 points. I'm going to make an early call on these all these games, but no, you're not going to mark these down and hold me to these because the official predictions, of course, are forthcoming. But hey, why not? Let's give these a shot going forward. North Carolina on the road to Virginia Tech, 6.5 points. If it were 7.5, I would be more tempted to take Virginia Tech. But even on the road, I believe North Carolina is going to be significantly better on defense. Significantly better on defense, and the offense is going to be probably, especially early in the season, a rung lower, that they're enough to cover the touchdown against Virginia Tech on the road. Okay, LSU and UCLA, I'm a bit curious about this point spread. UCLA is not a good football team. They're a team that was atrocious in Chip Kelly's first 2 seasons. They're a team that has not beaten a group of 5 team. Chip Kelly is 0-5 against group of 5 teams. That count might be 0-4 against group of 5 teams, albeit Cincinnati's in there for 2 games. So UCLA played better football last year. They went 3-4, but took USC to the wire at the end. Should have won that game up by a couple scores late. But LSU only a 3-point favorite at UCLA. I know road game, but the Rose Bowl is not intimidating. The Rose Bowl is beautiful. The Rose Bowl is historic. The Rose Bowl is a great venue to visit. But most of the fans are looking out at the San Gabriels and not at the field or making any noise. LSU, a 3-point favorite at UCLA. This might be death, but I would go right today with a second consecutive road favorite to cover. That can't happen too often. I can't have too many of those because that is the formula for failure. That is the formula to get you and me in debt. So I'm not going to do it too many times. The road favorites to cover. But LSU, I know they're going to have a lot of issues to work out on offense. And UCLA's got a 3-year starting quarterback in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. But I'm going to take that SEC speed, athleticism, and muscle up front to just all night in that one. All right. We've got, blow it up, Mark. Alabama, Miami. when I first saw this game on the board or even thought about what the point spread could be, or when somebody questioned me a few weeks ago about my projection of a point spread, 21 hit me. 21 hit me. So you know where I'm going here. Neutral site. Alabama plays these games every year. Duke, Louisville, West Virginia, Wisconsin, Michigan, USC, Florida State, Clemson. Yes, they played Clemson. If you haven't watched college football for a long time, Alabama played Clemson in an opener. Before Clemson was Dabo Swinney Clemson. Even though Dabo was there, they weren't ready for that kind of game. Virginia Tech. So Alabama, they roll. I know the concerns for certain Alabama fans have to do with offense and Bryce Young and chemistry and offensive line, and I get it. You just don't flip a switch. Yeah, Alabama flips a switch. And if I don't flip a switch, I'm not going to have a phone working here soon. Bama covers. Neutral site, they cover. 860-499-3332. Anything concerning college football doesn't have to be about the betting lines. All right. And I will get to the comments in the comment section. Georgia Clemson. Go to our Clemson channel. We've got a preview on this game. Dogs and Tigers. I initially had a thought that Georgia had the best team in the country. They have since lost George Pickens. They picked up a capable, better than capable defensive back out of West Virginia and Tyke Smith. But the secondary, I'm really going to have to study the Georgia secondary before I make national selections, because I can get every conference championship prediction right. Nobody's going to pat me on the back if I miss it in the playoffs. Last year, bear with me, I'm not going to be able to say this for too many more months. I picked Alabama to beat Ohio State in the national championship game before the season started last year. But I am really going to have to study that Georgia secondary, and really, not that I have much more to know about it. I've looked it over, but I'm really going to have to think about how effective can they be. It's almost like Ohio State's secondary in that I don't need to know the recruiting rankings. I know the recruiting rankings that Ohio State is going to flood their secondary with 4 stars. Don't think they've got any 5 stars back there, but they're going to flood it with 4 stars and really nothing else. So those guys are supposed to step up and play. But for the first time in forever, I don't know the last time that Ohio State is returning a secondary where you can't point at one and usually 2 or 3 guys and say, I know he's a player. I know he's an All-American. He's an All-Big Ten player, and he's good. He's capable. He'll probably be 2nd or 3rd team All-Big Ten. And the 4th guy, I'm not sure about. Okay, he's the 4-star that barely stepped on the field last year, but if he falters, then they bring in somebody else. And Georgia's kind of in that boat as well. They've got a couple guys. Scene comes to mind. That's a really good player. But a couple of guys that I can count on. So Ohio State's actually in worse shape than Georgia in the secondary. I can't point to anybody in the Buckeye secondary and say, I know he's a good player. I don't know when the last time I could say that. So the Georgia secondary scares me from them winning the SEC and, of course, going to the college football playoff and making noise. 3-point underdog against Clemson in Charlotte, unless somebody else has better info for me in terms of venue, 50-50 crowd, neutral site. Charlotte's a little closer to Clemson, maybe. It's not a factor. Maybe Pete's got something to say about that. Maybe Joe Bo does too. Where are Georgia fans in here? So Joe Bo saying that UCLA is getting a lot of love because of their returning production. Yeah, I'm aware of that. It's marginal returning production. It's top 60 in the country returning production. I understand that. Jobo's going in with LSU minus 9.5. So that's significantly more than the line, of course. That's significant. That's huge. I would have gone more maybe in the 6 to 6.5 range. That's what I was expecting to see once you break that touchdown barrier. Most of you know that the two biggest barriers to overcome or think about in regards to betting lines are, of course, 3 is huge, 7 is huge. 3 and 7, and then extrapolate that out. Hey, Sue, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. My daughter will be a graduate of the University of Rhode Island as of tomorrow. Well, Mike, that's a good play. That is always a good play. That isn't even worthy of any discussion. Rutgers, that's when you just say, hey, how much money can I get out of accounts and credit cards? Just what can I do to put as much money on a game as possible? Lou is here to educate, especially me. I could use a lot of education concerning college football. I've always said that. Texas, Louisiana, too much. Cheryl is a big Buckeyes fan. I saw one of Saban's better teams against my Buckeyes. I'm not shocked my team lost. I'm with you, Jobo. And sometimes that can get overplayed when a team is well-liked and well-respected because they proved something, like Louisiana proved last year. That can get overplayed at times to say, wow, we really like them. And look at this big bag giant team that completely underachieves all the time. And they're a 10.5 point favorite. And look at Louisiana. They bring back all this production. We love the coach. He knows what he's doing. They beat Iowa State on the road by 17. Sometimes that can get a little bit overplayed, and suddenly we forget the talent advantage. And maybe if this was a week 2 or 3 game, I would lean a little bit more on the Texas side with Sarkisian and company, and having seen the starting quarterback play a few weeks. So I would like to see Casey Thompson, who's expected to win the starting quarterback job, play a few weeks before I see them line up against Louisiana. Then I would have a better gauge because that's a bit of a wild card. Texas, like Ohio State, does have the cushion of the 4-star, 5-star type quarterback waiting in the wings if the first guy falters, and that would be Hudson Card if Thompson wins the job as expected. But just take the points. You know, you're already up 11. You need Texas to come out and win this game by 11 points. And shoot, Louisiana could win the game. You know, depending on what the money line says, Louisiana might be a fair play to take on the money line. So I would love to have my notebook here charting all the games from last year, but there were double-digit underdogs who won games every week of the college football season last year. And they typically aren't just these ridiculous 22-point spreads. They're usually the teams that are within range. There's a clear reason why one team's a 12 or 13-point favorite, but the other teams, they're not in awe. They're comparable to the team that they're an underdog to. And there's reasons they're an underdog. They're on the road, plus these other factors, but it's not a mismatch. And we see it every week. Double-digit underdogs win in college football a couple times per week. 1 to 2 times per week does a double-digit underdog prevail, and that's a decent candidate right there. That may be a good financial play to make, meaning that you're most likely not going to win. That Texas will win the game, even if they only win by 3 or 4 points, especially at home. But that if that game was played, let's say my mathematicians in here would need to come through for me on this one. With it being a 10.5 point spread, that money line is probably going to be what, 450? That Louisiana's plus 450. So basically, this is saying if they play 4 times and Louisiana gets the win once and loses the series 3 games to 1, well, you're going to win money. Now, of course, it's not what happens in reality, but if you take that type of approach overall and you know what you're doing, that's where you can win money. I can group games together and say, out of these games, I am picking all these underdogs to win against the money line, and I only need to hit 4 of 10, and I'm going to make money. Now, I'm an underdog in every game, but bam, I come through with 4 out of 10, or I come through with 5 out of 10, and I make a nice chunk of change. Group games together. If you're going to go against the money line, or take the money line, I should say, against large spreads, take that underdog against the money line, group the games together and do the math and figure, okay, here's my break-even point. If I hit 4 out of 10, I'm going to make a little bit of money. And I think I can hit 5 out of 10 and make substantial money. But if I only hit 3 out of 10, okay, I'm going to lose a little bit. And that's my break off. That's my breaking point, 3 to 4. That makes sense? All right. Groon. Haven't seen Groon for a while. Georgia is always overrated. Tired of these dudes. Dog crap. Clemson by 10. I will take Georgia with the 10 right now. Again, that doesn't mean that Clemson can't win the game by 10, but if they play 50 times, Georgia gets 10 points every time, I'm a rich man. If they play Clemson 50 times and you give me Georgia and 10 points every time, I'm rich, because Georgia wins the game almost 50% of the time outright. Plus, with the 10 points, be smart, people. Be smart. And I don't necessarily know, Groon, if Georgia is overrated based on if you looked at the preseason AP rankings versus where they finish. I don't think so. They're not. I get your point. People are claiming and touting national championship teams at Georgia every year. Certain people out there. And I did a couple of years ago. I get it. So it's not as though you have no validity to your point, but technically speaking, if you looked at the preseason rankings for Georgia versus the final results, they're really not overrated. James says he would take LSU minus 6.5 all day. Well, it's 3, James. So jump on that right now. Thank you. It's just me, Tim79. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. 904 Hurricanes in the house. Mark, you might want to consider Oklahoma for that national championship preseason prediction. Really? Do I really want to consider that? I'd have to look at the odds. I would have to get overwhelming odds, because this program has yet to prove that they can win a playoff game, of course. It's a big leap between making the playoffs, which is a tremendous accomplishment. You've got to be a top-level team, top-level program just to reach the playoff. But there's a difference between reaching the playoff and winning playoff games. 3 teams are basically winning any playoff games. for 7 years. There's Oregon, there's Washington, there's Michigan State, there's a number of other teams that have reached, but there's a huge leap that they would have had to make to get that win. Oklahoma almost did it with Baker Mayfield in 17, but I'd have to see the odds. Scott, our Texas fan, probably didn't like what we had to say about the Louisiana game. Gun to my head right this second. I'm going Texas wins 31-24. This is your best bet. I think that Cheryl's going to have her Grand My van definitely built out by the spring of 22. Oh, we got Lou on hold. How long are you going to wait? Until I check my computer screen and take it off of sleep mode here. That's what always happens to me. Here's my guy, Uncle Lou, coming through for me. What's up, sir? You would need us. Oh, did I lose you? I got you going through the board. Hang on, Lou. I can't hear you. What's going on here? Can everybody hear Lou?
I hear you.
Oh, there he is. There he is. You weren't coming through my earpiece there for a minute for some reason. I didn't even touch anything.
Sorry. I got I said you said you would need astronomical odds to even consider Oklahoma winning the national title.
If I use the word astronomical, then I apologize. They would need to be pretty favorable. I don't know, 8-1.
I mean, they're one of the five they're one of the 5 or 6 that has a shot.
Absolutely.
Don't you think?
Absolutely. Yes.
And there's not many more than that.
Yes.
And a shot, is there?
And probably, and see if you agree with this, after Clemson, they probably have the most secure route because of the conference and their dominance over the conference. Yeah. But I do think that there's
I think you have to consider that the route that they take. You have to give at least as much weight to that as you do to the fact that they lose every time in the first round. And don't you think that, I mean, this is going to be the best defense they've had. I mean, that's been the problem.
Yes. Yep.
So,
I've been saying for years,
it's impossible
Lou,
to say. We don't know what the matchup will be round one, but I mean, I do think this is their best shot that they've had. It's definitely under Lincoln Riley.
I agree. And I have, in looking at, let's say, the Georgia-Oklahoma comparison, because they're just under that program 3 line that's the elite, that when people ask me, depending on how they ask me, I've explained that I think Georgia's had the better football players, the better program, the better team, but look at their path. The path is difficult, but I'm going to rate them as a better program. Yeah, the quarterbacks have proven at this.
It's actually remarkable if you consider how few games Georgia has lost in the last 5 years, given how piss poor their quarterbacks have been. That's pretty good. I mean, we're in an age of offense. Quarterback's by far the most important position. Hey, out of the top 5 teams, which 2 teams? There's only 2 of the top 5 teams that have proven quarterbacks. Is there not?
Sure, it's Oklahoma and
Georgia and Oklahoma,
and it's Georgia. Clemson. At least we got to see him play a meaningful game against a tough opponent.
Meaningful, yes. But let's get real here. The ukulele, whatever his name is, couldn't win on the road at Notre Dame. Now, a half-melted bowl of vanilla ice cream with no legs, Jake Fromm, what was his first ever start?
Okay. He's not the whole team, though, Lou.
On the road at Notre Dame. He was what? On a good team? Ukulele
was on a great team.
The ukulele wasn't on a good
tremendous team. Jake also scored 20, and ukulele scored 40.
First game on the road at Notre Dame as a freshman. The ukulele toted the Giant L.
Okay.
Fact.
Ukulele also scored 40, and Fromm scored 20. He's not responsible for the
Who
defense.
won
He
the
can't do
game?
much about that. He's the quarterback. Well, what about, like, do you want to compare left guards and say, well, he won the game, so he must be a better left guard than the other guy?
No, left guard isn't the most important position in football. Quarterback
It's not,
is.
but the quarterback can't control, let alone his own offense. He can't control the defense for sure.
Point is, Fromm's terrible and found a way to get it done in his first ever start on the road at Notre Dame. Ukulele told the Giant. I mean, those are just facts. What about? Let me ask you something else. Then agree to disagree. If you had to bet your last dollar that Texas was going to lose to Louisiana or Arkansas, where would you put that dollar?
Louisiana.
You think Louisiana's got a better chance to beat?
Slightly.
Is the Arkansas game neutral? No, the Arkansas game's at Arkansas.
That would be the consideration to make. Yeah, I think they are playing at Arkansas, true road game. That's a tough call. Yeah. Maybe I lean toward Arkansas, just more beef, more muscle, SEC athletes to a certain extent. Are the lines out on both of those games yet or just the one? Well, we've got the one. Let me check out the other one. I think it is out, and I think it's only 4 comes to mind. I know I brushed past it at some point. Here we go. It's only 4. Texas on the road, -4. So Vegas is telling us there's this considerable difference there.
Yeah, I'm surprised there.
And I don't know if you heard what I said about Louisiana before. I do think we can get suckered into, oh, wow, they beat Iowa State on the road. But we got to consider there is a difference in athletes.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Would you take even money that Texas loses one of those 2 games?
Even money. Yes, I think the percentages say that makes sense. I'd love to have a mathematician here figure it out. I think it's pretty close, but I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I do too. I'd have to think about it. And the last one I wanted to ask you about, well, two more points I want to make real quick, and then I'll let you get somebody else on. When it came out, Alabama was at 16.5. I hope people got on that. How high is that thing going to get?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, 20? Yeah. 16.5 was giving money away. So I hope people got on Alabama -16.5 over the tropical storms down there. That was easy money there. Alabama would beat any team in America week 1 by 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's not even, you don't even have to think about that. Just do it. Just put your money on it. And the other thing I told people when the UGA Tater line came out and it was 4 points, I told them the same thing. You better take Georgia now. If you like Georgia, you better take them now. Now it's already down to 3. Big money coming in on the dogs in that week 1 matchup. Georgia versus the Tater. Mark, Georgia's 42-18 against Clemson for a reason. Have a good morning.
Appreciate it, man. It's our guy, Uncle Lou. Always with a good take on things. All right. Again, I had not planned to do this, but saw that the betting lines here in the last few days were out, and I had a window of time to jump on here, talk a little college football with all of you. So the number's down at the bottom ticker, 860-499-3332. McD's on the line here. And let's keep making our way through these week 1 lines. Where do we leave this thing off? Yeah, Georgia Clemson. Would just figure that I would say that I believe Georgia to have the best team in the country right after the national championship, and then George Pickens got hurt. And I'm not going to ride my entire season on predicting Georgia to falter because of George Pickens, but it just didn't help that I was seriously considering Georgia to break through this year and get to the playoff, win it all. And now I'm looking at this secondary situation as well, and I'm concerned. Notre Dame, Florida State. Florida State, I don't think people really grasp, unless they're Florida State fans, of course, Miami fans, because they keep an eye on this, regardless of what they tell you. They keep I learn this every week doing these Florida State Miami live streams. It's that they're generally, not every, I'm not talking about every fan, pretty paranoid with each other. Is that Florida State's an awful football team until they prove otherwise. They do have some talent, but they're awful. They did not play outside of that North Carolina Miracle a good football game last season. Louisville Ole Miss with the Rebels a 7-point favorite. I believe that's a neutral site game. I think that's what they typically do with the Atlanta location. Play a game ACC SEC on Saturday, Monday. I believe that's the Monday night game. Louisville Ole Miss Rebs -7. I think that's a pretty fair line at this point. Pretty fair line. Yeah, as we dive into week 2, we've got Texas and Arkansas. And again, that's only a 4-point spread. People happy about the Hogs and what they were able to accomplish last year. But let's not fool ourselves. They're not quite prepared to play SEC football on a weekly basis. Their defense is a bit spotty. And they're going to be breaking in a new quarterback, of course. We got our guy, Kevin from Dallas, on the line. Welcome to the Voice of College Football.
Good afternoon, Mark. How you doing today?
I'm good, Kevin. What's going on?
Well, just before, I have to take care of business first. Congratulations as far as the daughter, as far as graduating. And I hope you gave her a lovely parting gift as far as 2 sets of luggage. That's the gift that keeps on giving. Hey, you're out the door, so hey, it's time to take the world by the horn. But in
she's out the door, so she contacted you about that first, and so then you were supposed to notify me on that. Okay, all right, that's. Well,
I thought that was supposed to be the case. That was my lovely parting gift as far as when I graduated. So I only thought that that was the gift that all parents gave their kids. So.
It took me about 9 months to get out the door. I was something in that range.
Okay, well, hey, you're a better dad than my mom was for me. Because, as soon as I walked across the stage, hey, it was like the price is right. You have won a set of matching luggage. So, but, as far as the point spread is concerned, Mark, as far as all the games, the Alabama is 17. I can see it because when it comes to Atlanta as well as New Orleans, we look at Atlanta as being Tuscaloosa East, and we look at New Orleans as being our southern campus, and then as far as Texas being our southwest campus. So, the only times that, University of Alabama fans are not going to travel is more so Miami as well as the West Coast. But as far as those other 3 venues, hey, whether it's the double wide or whether it's as far as whether it's the 150 to 350, they're going to head to those venues as far as full support. As far as that 10 points, as far as the Clemson, Georgia, the 2 teams, I would give DJ more experience than JT because as you stated, 40 supersedes 20 as far as on the scoreboard, and by that being the case, I would lean more so toward that. And to support your point in reference to Fromm, Fromm's team was more experienced going on the road as far as Georgia to Notre Dame than the Clemson team with DJ going against Notre Dame.
When I think about neutral site games, though, so we've got, of course, this thought process that Vegas is looking at a 3-point swing based on where the game's played. And of course, that's not equal. It's more difficult to go to Death Valley at LSU than it is to go to Kansas, of course. But that's just kind of that general thought that Vegas looks at a 3 points as being valid to give to the home team. But when you're playing a neutral site game, even if the crowd's heavily in favor of one team versus the other, I don't know how much of that 3-point analysis has to do with crowd and how much of it has to do with just one team was able to sleep in their own beds, go through their routine, not have to travel. They're familiar with the stadium, familiar with the surroundings. Just they feel at home because they are at home versus yeah, one team's technically the home team because they're wearing different colors than the road team at a neutral site. And maybe they've got a 75-25 advantage in the stadium regarding the crowd, but it's a road game for both teams in all other ways. They had to travel. They're in unfamiliar territory in an NFL stadium.
But, when it comes to certain teams, though, Mark, example, as far as I stated earlier, University of Alabama playing in the Chick-fil-A Classic or whatever the name of it is, as far as here, against any team. I mean, that's going to be big time University of Alabama. The same as far as in New Orleans. I mean, the only time that you can get a, quote, neutral field as far as University of Alabama, hey, it has to be in doggone, like I stated, as far as the West Coast. And as far as Georgia's concerned, the same. And the craziest thing as far as in reference to any game that is held here, there are more doggone Buckeye, Seminole, and Cane fans here than there are Bulldog fans here. Just as, some would say that as far as the city of Miami being, so Yankee, for lack of a better term, the same could be said here. There are more transplants as far as the state of Georgia than there are Georgians, for that matter. So, as far as it being as far as the game here or, some of the other games that are supposed to be, I would say probably the only game that would be, I don't know, maybe a 55-45 as far as fan, or maybe a little bit less as far as Clemson would be that game that's that game that is being played in Charlotte as far as Clemson, Georgia. So.
Yeah.
And for a moment, Mark, I wanted to ask you in reference to, want to share with you a what if. And the what if is dealing with the gentleman from, as we so eloquently stated, the University up north, as far as Jim Harbaugh. And how not say our, but as far as how his future could have been one way or the other. I would ask you as far as what your opinion is on it, as far as, okay, he made the move as far as from Stanford to the San Francisco 49ers. Within a few years, he's able to, get the ship on the right path. A non-call as far as a Super Bowl, and that could have not only changed his future, but also Colin Kaepernick's future. Because I look at it as far as safe fences, if that would have transpired as far as the call made, and we were just gone just for the premise sake, San Francisco would have won the Super Bowl. Okay, so you're looking at Colin Kaepernick, a Super Bowl quarterback, a Jim Harbaugh being a Super Bowl championship coach, and how their futures could have been different. Would you think that the possibility of Mark say that Kaepernick would have finished career with the 49ers, as well as Harbaugh would have won the power struggle with the Yorks and would still be with the 49ers?
There's a huge gap of perception between winning a Super Bowl and losing a Super Bowl. Just ask the Buffalo Bills. Their accomplishments are somewhat dismissed by many. I would hope that people that analyze the sport for a living, though, because they have shown that they're capable of doing so and analyzing players, meaning scouts and NFL personnel people in the front office, are beyond that. But the more I watch these documentaries and watch and see what kind of decisions have been made through history, we all just think that there are computers running at a zillion miles an hour, constantly spitting out information, and that these decisions are just kind of so cold-hearted and just done by just raw, pure execution. But there's a lot of politicking involved. There's a lot of, especially in that case, a lot of just power plays made that have little to do with the football on the field, unfortunately. But once you win a Super Bowl versus you lost the Super Bowl, regardless of what disclaimers could be made of how you lost the Super Bowl, and the same thing with the head coach. Yeah, I think the trajectory of the careers can potentially change dramatically. The list of Super Bowl championship winning quarterbacks and coaches and how they're perceived versus and what kind of opportunities given to them after winning those championships versus Super Bowl losing coaches and quarterbacks is substantial. The whole thing with Michigan and Harbaugh is somewhat of a mystery to me, in regards to what has happened with this guy. I do think that the perception of his win-loss record is a bit skewed to the negative. I think people overplay that a bit. He's had successful seasons by most measurements, meaning just sheer wins and losses through the first portion of his tenure up until last season. He needs to win championships. He's not done that. You want to talk about something that was even closer than San Francisco winning a Super Bowl against Baltimore that could have changed history, is that measurement on fourth down just prior to overtime of the Ohio State-Michigan game in 2016. That was, one of those credit card, the fraction of a credit card in length decisions of a measurement by the officials that would have sent Michigan to the Big Ten championship. They would have been an overwhelming favorite to win that game, go to the playoff. Who knows what would have happened, because boom, all of a sudden in year two, he's going to win over Ohio State. He's in the playoff. This whole thing could look totally different today between Ohio State and Michigan and where Harbaugh stands than it does based on that one measurement. And was that measurement correct? Or I'm not here to say it was correct or not correct. I think it was so close. That is the one aspect of officiating during a football game that still, to me, is so imprecise, is the spotting of the ball. That's the one thing that all of our expertise and equipment and technology cannot determine accurately. Where should that ball be placed? And that may have completely changed his career.
Yes, I would definitely have to concur as far as on the collegiate level. And I just wanted to go back just for 1 second as far as two other players, as far as from the 49ers. And as far as their, one as far as a career-ending injury, as well as one who, without his Batman or Robin, depending on how you want to look at it, how much that affected his career. And that is and I just have to say, I'm looking at, when I make this statement, Marcus, through 49er glasses. And that is as far as when the Seahawks ripped up Navarre Bowman's knee, and then also as far as subsequently, I would say maybe 3 to 4 years later, Patrick Willis's retirement. If we would have had a healthy Bowman for another half a decade and a healthy Patrick Willis for another decade, and piggybacking that on top of a Super Bowl win, how that could have changed the 49ers as far as their current history.
We've got an NFL show breaking out here. All right.
Hey,
so
I didn't mean that. I didn't mean it, but it's just,
that's good. I love
just
the
a matter
NFL.
of that connection as far as Bowman, Kaepernick, Harbaugh, and Willis. So, and this will be for the last time, Mark, as far as on the pro side.
I'm fine with that. I love the NFL. If I could clone myself, I would start an NFL channel. So refresh my memory in regards to the timing of those two injuries, Willis and Bowman. Did they both get hurt the season following the Super Bowl appearance when they went to 8-8?
Willis was more so having the doggone habitual issue with the big toe. And that pretty much, he had a foot issue, and that pretty much, I think he only played, when it was all said and done, Mark, maybe 8 years, and then he just retired. But that was maybe, I'm going to say, 3 years after the Super Bowl. As far as Bowman was concerned, that was a Seahawk playoff game in 12th Man Stadium, and it was a goal line stand in which I know that football is a doggone collision sport, but I feel that they not only went to the whistle, but threw the whistle on that particular play and tore that doggone knee up as far as Bowman.
Man, I used to have a completely lockdown on every NFL playoff game in history, but the Seattle-San Francisco game, That was the 2013 game that sent Seattle to the Super Bowl against Denver. Richard Sherman made a play in the end zone, broke up a pass, right? That ended the game?
Crabtree, yes, sir.
Yes, on Crabtree.
Yeah, versus Crabtree.
And then San Francisco plummeted the next year, and Harbaugh, that was his last year, 8-8.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're talking about Patrick Willis was the best inside linebacker in the NFL. And that San Francisco front seven was one of the most devastating units, probably going back to Baltimore and Tampa Bay in 02, in that 2000 to 02 range. That San Francisco defense was serious. Absolutely. And that started to tear it apart.
Yes, just as it was put together, Mark, brick by brick, God dog it, they knocked it down brick by brick too. But it is, but going back to regular schedule program as far as on the college side, Mark, and that is, the same as far as could be said on the college side. And I'm going to allow you to, if you would indulge me, to look at the world through Buckeye glasses for a moment. And that's in reference to Urban. I'm going to give them two names for a moment. And I'll just ask you to indulge me. The urban myth and the urban legend. As far as the urban legend part of it would be in reference to if he would have won the SEC championship, not just the first time, but also back to back, how that could have changed his future. And instead of it being urban legend, as far as SEC, those that look at the world through SEC glasses look at it as more so being urban myth. Because on this end, some say that because he lost that second year in the SEC championship game, that was the thing that ushered his way out of the SEC. So, Mark, how do you feel if he would have won as far as back-to-back SEC championship games? Would he have stayed in the SEC several years long?
I got to tell you, Kevin, even though I'm here to answer all questions, I always hate the questions that cause me to have to speculate in terms of what is going on between somebody's ears that I don't know. So when it comes to Urban Meyer, anybody can get on here and criticize his life decisions regarding football, but we know what we're talking about in regards to player discipline, coaching staff discipline, and the rights and the wrongs. And I think it's debatable, and I think it's murky and complicated, but I validate both sides to a certain degree. But in terms of just football, I don't know where the myth is there, because all that guy did was deliver. He wasn't perfect, but wow. From the standpoint of, and I'm going to make a statement that's going to have a million people just going crazy here. But at another place, at another time, I'm not saying that Urban Meyer is a better coach than Nick Saban. I'm making that comment. I'm not saying that he has more accomplishments than Nick Saban. He does not. I could make the argument that because when it comes down to it, the only thing that the coach can control is winning on the field. He can't control who's going to get selected to the playoff, and he can't control all those things. That just when it comes to just sheer winning percentage, he did it better than anybody has in modern college football history. Just sheer, okay, we're playing 12 games this year. I'm going to win more than everybody else in the country consistently every year and never have a down season. Yeah, he went 8-5 at Florida one year. I get that he had a down season, but I'm just talking in general that he won a higher percentage of games than anybody. So when it comes down to this, first of all, they got handled in the second half against Alabama, as you will know. That was a 32-12 final in what we thought was going to be a great game. And it was for about 3 quarters, and then a few things went wrong, and Alabama really showed its muscle. So I always like to square up those what if questions when it's a official's call or a tipped pass or something that was razor close to say, man, this was so close that we can have this conversation, as opposed to Alabama laid down the hammer in the fourth quarter. And I don't know what decision he would have made. I know that he came back to Florida regardless, and still came back to Florida to coach another season in 2010. So it's not like he walked off the field after that game and never coached again at Florida. Is that what you're trying to get my thoughts on whether Urban Meyer would have stayed at Florida had he won the 2009 SEC championship game?
Yes, sir. And I feel, Mark, that he would have. I mean, I feel that he would have stayed there because I feel that he would have felt that he was ahead of the posse. And when I say posse, I mean as in Nick. Because I think that Nick's Damascus Road experience was as far as that game. Because that game was, pretty much what you're looking at is what, set the course as far as for the University of Alabama. And that was that 2008 class.
So you're basically saying, if I'm reading you correctly, Kevin, sorry to interrupt, is that you believe that Urban Meyer stays at a school and any conference as long as he believes I can dominate this conference, and I am dominating this conference. And at the point that he gets threatened, you think that causes him to run?
I would have to say so, Mark. I would have to say so. And I have to say that, pretty much unapologetically. I mean, hey, the only thing that I have as far as a can of root beer, as far as, and that's, that's shaken, not stirred, and that's it.
Kevin,
I think
two reasons.
I think it was a combination of two things, though, briefly, Mark. One was in reference to being ahead of the posse as far as the league, but then also I think the other thing that may have pushed him was the loss, as well as far as the things that were going on in Gainesville as far as his players, which, as you stated here, you can't control that. You can't control the police blotter.
Well, you can to a certain extent, but I get your point. Yeah, you can't walk around town with every player on the team. And that's why these guys get paid $5, $6, $7 million a year, is because they are held accountable for all of that. So I will say two reasons why I'm not going to accuse Urban Meyer of running away from Nick Saban in Alabama. These are the two reasons why I won't say that. Number one, again, I'll go back to, I'm going to be the last person you're going to see online making evaluations of people in regards to what's going on between their ears, unless just the evidence is so overwhelming in one direction that, okay, well, their actions state that they always do this, therefore I know what they're thinking. But point number two would be, because he only did it once. So if you're going to square up that situation as, okay, Alabama was coming, they finally caught him, they beat him soundly, and then Nick Saban's rolling up these great recruiting classes, and he sees Saban coming, and so he ran. But he didn't have a track record of doing that. He left Utah, so he leaves Bowling Green for a better job. He doesn't leave because some other school in the MAC is bullying him around. He goes to Utah. He leaves with an undefeated football team. It wasn't like somebody, again, was challenging him as the better team. He was clearly had the best program in the conference at the time, and left for a better job. Florida. He takes Florida from a 5-loss team to a 2-time national champion. That would be the one scenario in which he would say, okay, maybe he's looking across the division saying, wow, Nick Saban's doing a hell of a job there, and look at Alabama. But then he goes to Ohio State, and he's got the best program and the best team in the conference there. And that's not what caused him to leave. It wasn't like Ohio State was falling off the cliff either. So I guess it's easy for us to come up with certain narratives and accusations for certain situations, and I see that there's evidence for it, but I just don't see that it's that overwhelming for me to make a judgment call on why Urban Meyer left Florida. If anything, he was still pulling in better. I think if we would line up the recruiting classes, like his last recruiting class was a top 3 recruiting class in the country.
Yes, duly noted, Mark. Duly noted. I mean, and the only reason why I brought it up, Mark, was just more so as in you had what they call the talking heads that were pretty much stating, okay, Saban, he's done, and that the new sheriff in town is Urban Meyer, and it's just as far as when just like the wind, in certain parts of the country, it changes, and when the wind changed, he went from he's there, he's arrived to, not so fast, my friend. So that's the only reason why why I brought that up.
Urban Meyer's last recruiting class at Florida was number 1 in the country. And we also have to understand.
Built in, Mark. I mean,
we also have to understand, Kevin. I think that when we talk about things that happened 15 years ago, or whatever the time frame, we've got to put ourselves back in that time and not look at it in 2021 and say, and in 2021, we know that Nick Saban's won 6 national championships and that he's, I don't even think it's arguable at this point, the greatest coach in the history of the game or the most accomplished coach in the history of the game. But we've got to set ourselves back in 2010 and say, and look at Nick Saban and say, yeah, he's phenomenal, but he's won 2 national championships and 1 at Alabama. And, he's not at this godlike status at the time.
That's true. That is true. That is true. And along those lines, Mark, in reference to Nick Saban and LSU, how could he, how many, I know once again, it's the what if. How many titles could he possibly win if he would have stayed at LSU?
Oh. If you look at LSU circa 2004, when he left, well, the program was in better shape, certainly, than Alabama was at that point because of him. And when I look at Alabama pre-Nick Saban and what they were post-Stallings to pre-Saban, to the beginning of Saban's tenure, and compare that to LSU at its peak, what are really the differences? They both invest everything they can into winning in football. They both have rabid fan bases. They both have talent-rich states that are limited in population. I believe that Alabama has substantially more population than Louisiana, but Louisiana, although Alabama's not highly populated, I believe it's got a substantial lead over Louisiana, but per capita, as you know, Louisiana produces more NFL players than any state in the country. So minus Nick Saban, there's all this tradition at Alabama, Bear Bryant, but LSU should be able to win as much as Alabama if they've got the right coach, and they had the right coach with Nick Saban. And so they were on their way. If God came down and could reset history and said Nick Saban stayed at LSU and he's got 7 national championships at LSU in 2021, I wouldn't argue. I'd say, yeah, I could see that because of all the things I just cited. Yep.
Yeah, because he was able to keep the kids. He did what no other coach. Old has to a degree what I'm about to say as far as putting a dent around the state of Louisiana, but even more so with Saban is that, the Louisiana kids didn't leave. Now you might get maybe 1 or 2. You have your Landon Collins that leave Louisiana to come to Alabama, but it's very far and few between since has been there. But it's the thing is, as far as in this modern era market, in a nutshell, is that we've been blessed. When it comes to the coaches, as far as Meyer, as far as his time at Florida, as well as his time at Ohio State, Saban as far as his time at LSU, as well as University of Alabama, and as well as I would even go as far as saying the current era period. Even when it comes to the younger coaches, as far as Lincoln Riley. As far as I grew up, Mark, as far as when I looked at the University of Oklahoma being the wishbone, and then you look at Nebraska, Texas, as far as the same. But now, as far as in quote this modern era, you're looking at at best you're going to have as far as I formation at an Oklahoma, Texas, or Nebraska, and you're only going you really just your bell cow being that one back. So the evolution as far as football, as far as at the major powers, I mean, it's just great. And the one thing that can really just separate some schools from other schools is the ability to adjust on the fly. And that's the one thing that you can say as far as with all those coaches over I think what you stated the past 7-8 years that have won national championships, as far as the ability to change. And now I'm not going to just say the ability, but the willingness to change. Because that's really the only reason, if you look at the University of Alabama winning 7 championships, or at least 7 under Saban, that has to be attributed to his willingness. It may have been kicking and screaming to change, Mark.
And the thing that works in Nick Saban's advantage to his favor now in 2021 that he didn't necessarily have in 2005 is that he's Nick Saban. Of course, he was still Nick Saban in 2005, but he was Nick Saban, well-respected, highly regarded coach, up and coming, had shown us enough to show that, well, he can win a national championships. He's a really good coach. Everybody can tell he's got what it takes, all that. But he's legend Nick Saban in 2021. So half the hard work of being a successful college football coach, he doesn't even have to deal with anymore. By his sheer presence, he gets recruits, he gets respect. Think about if Nick Saban is just as good as he is right now, but you strip off the name and he walks into a locker room, yeah, he still has the ability to communicate. He still has all that innate ability to understand football and teach and instruct. He has all that, but the players don't know who he is. So he's got to earn all that respect. He doesn't have to earn respect anymore. He just walks in a locker room and he's got the respect because of everything he's accomplished. So half of what all these coaches have to do to build a program, he's already got that whipped because he earned it based on his great ability. But now it just comes with the name.
That is true. That's quite true.
And I'm saying that to his credit.
Oh, yeah.
But he doesn't have to work as hard as he did. And I'm not saying he doesn't work as hard. I'm just saying he doesn't have to work as hard.
And that being the case, Mark, I'm going to enjoy these next, 4 to 5 years for what it's worth, because after these next 4 to 5 years, and when he decides to, devote full time to Terry and the lake, it is going to be back as far as looking for, quote, that dude, and who that dude is going to be, Mark, I don't know. I don't have the slightest idea. Now, along those lines, I don't know whether this guy would be a dark horse, and I would just ask you to let it marinate for a minute. As far as it says that the guy who is waiting as far as for this job, and he may be off everyone's radar, and the reason why he didn't make a jump after his successful season at a particular Louisiana college is Billy Napier. For whatever that's worth, Mark.
Oh, I think it's worth a lot. He was a guy that a lot of Auburn fans wanted when Brian Harsin was hired. All right,
and
Kevin.
One clickbait, Mark.
Yeah.
Out of Mark, I was going to ask you about, then I'll exit stage left, and that is, have you heard anything about a potential Justin Ross transfer to a SEC school in the state of Alabama? Hint, hint.
Have I ever heard anything legitimate? I don't know if I've heard anything legitimate. I've heard a lot about it.
Okay.
It was all over social media the other day.
Where did it come from, though, Mark? But where did it come from? Yeah.
I really don't know. Maybe somebody can answer that question. When I see those kind of things, in this day and age, I've conditioned myself to try to find look for a reliable source before I start to go down that rabbit hole to try to report and figure out whether that's true or not, or there's any substance to it, because there's typically not. So I don't know. As you well know, he was very close to signing with the Crimson Tide. All right, sir.
Yeah, he's an Alabama. Thanks. Take care, Mark. Look forward to talking with you soon now.
Appreciate it. All right. We do have some other calls coming in. I wanted to honor the super chat. Thank you so much for that, Falconer X. Appreciate the contribution. All right. What odds should I get to take the Canes to win the national championship this season? I could say 1,000,000 to 1, and you still wouldn't win the $1 million. That's the problem. Regardless of the odds, when it's not going to happen, it's just not going to happen. So in a few days, I'm going to be releasing a video about national championships and where those teams started the season. And I'm going to go all the way back to 1950 and where those teams started the season and what the national perception of was concerning each one of those teams. And as we all know, we're in a day and an age in which there are a few surprises in college football regarding the elite. So they are going to have to break a trend that goes back for a good 30 some years, even before this playoff era. So the playoff era has really narrowed everything down. I don't know if that's gone hand in hand with what's happened, or it's just coincidence that, again, we're talking about 3 schools winning national championships. Yes, LSU got in there as well, but 3 teams that go to playoffs consistently and win national championships, led by Alabama. Even if you go back before that, through the 90s, through the 2000s, the national ranking position of the eventual national champion was always extremely high. Florida State started number 11 in 2013. I think just about everybody in the 1990s, yes, were single-digit ranked teams to start the season. Miami will not be one of those teams. They will have to do something that hasn't been done as a top 15-ish ranked team to start the season, that hasn't been done since the 80s, when we actually had a run of teams. We had a run of preseason number 1 teams that faltered and finished in the teens in the rankings. And we also had national champions emerge from unranked status or lowly ranked status to win national championships. So based on that, I'm telling you, your team is going to have to buck a 30-year trend. So I bet the odds are probably 35 or 40 to 1, something in that range, I would think, for Miami right now, maybe lower than that, but I'm not touching that. All right. All right. We've got It's Just Me, Tim 79. We got Sue saying that JT Barrett was not short on the measurement in 2016. And I guarantee that both of them are Ohio State fans. I'm not saying that he was short or not short. I'm saying that the ball placement in football is the most inexact science that exists, with all the technology and everything that's been perfected concerning the boundaries and replay. Replay's done a great job of determining boundaries and whether the ball broke the plane or the player got 2 feet in, or did the ball come out of the player's hand before his knee touched down, all of that. But the placement of the ball is impossible to get correct down to the inch. And it's still just a guessing game from these officials. Every time a player runs out of bounds, where was the ball? Where was the ball in his hand when he stepped out of bounds? Well, when did he step out of bounds? He had a foot in, and then he takes the next step that's a good 4 to 5 feet further away from that initial foot that touched down, and he steps out of bounds. Where's the ball? Where's the ball when it's impossible to determine. Therefore, those are just really good guesses those officials make, and they are placed in an impossible position to get that correct. Therefore, did JT Barrett make the first down against Michigan? Well, yes, he did, because that's what the officials determined. But did he, in fact, make the first down? If God could come down and tell us exactly where the ball was supposed to be placed, I have no idea. I have no idea. It was that close. All right, I got a call coming in. Got DeAndre on the line. DeAndre,
What's up?
what's going on?
What's up, buddy? Yeah, man, chilling, man. Let me get my thoughts together here. So I heard your last caller talk about where the rumors about Justin Ross come from. Now, I talked about the defense on your last show the last 2 times. I'm going to say something that might be kind of controversial, but try to understand where I'm coming from.
Okay.
This Clemson receiver group, as a group, on paper, has the potential to be the best receiving group, even without Justin Ross. Because you got AJ coming back. I can't remember his name. He played last year as a freshman. He's from the same city. Then you got the guy that Latson. They haven't lived up to the height they were like Sammy Watkins, but they're pretty. I think Latson had a rib injury or some injuries to his stomach. Latson, he missed a lot of balls, especially against Miami. But it seemed like he was hurt throughout the year, too. So you got those 4. Then you add Justin Ross. And I go back and look at Clemson receiver groups. Even with Scott, Mike Williams, DRK, and some of those other guys, I think this group is, on paper, better than the receiver group that we had with Watson or a couple of years ago, because of depth. And so I think with Justin Ross, really not know what you're going to get out of this year, and Alabama and Auburn need to help out wide receiver, I think that's where the rumors started at, because Clemson is very deep at receiver. And you got both of those Collin guys come in. They joke around. They call them the Collin brothers, but they're not related. You got those 2. I mean, they're just deep at receiver. And then we ain't even talked about how good the tight end room is this year. And I don't know what happened with Galloway last year, but people was expecting him to make a big difference. And then you got the top tight end in the country coming in. And then you got Allen, who played last year a lot too. So I could see why they would say Justin Ross might want to leave. And the reason, and that's why I say this receiver room might be the most talented. I know we had some great players with Tyler Winfro and Mike Williams, but on paper, I think this is the most talented group that Clemson's ever had at one time.
DeAndre, before we get to the football part of that, getting to the social media part of it, if somebody's making an evaluation that, okay, Clemson's got this loaded wide receiver room and we think that Justin Ross might jump ship, well, they should state it that way, to say, we're taking a projection that Justin Ross is going to leave Clemson, not start some kind of rumor that Justin Ross is saying that he's going to leave Clemson. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I don't know who started that, but yeah, because I see when he came out and said, that ain't true. I'm not leaving Clemson, which I would say, why would he leave? Because he had to get used to a new system. And so I don't understand why he would leave.
You don't think he's the most talented wide receiver on the roster?
Yeah.
He's not, is what you're saying.
What you say? I didn't hear the last part.
Is Justin Ross the most talented wide receiver on the roster?
Yeah, before his injury, yeah. but we don't know how his injury is going to affect when he gets hit. But yes, he is. I would say that. I agree with that one. And he's the only one that has produced so far outside of AJ. Like I said, I'm going with like the fact that they have potential to be great. And that's a lot of balls in the room to try to make everybody happy. So,
unless he
that's
sees
why I
a
look
wide
at it.
receiver situation at another school that's a big time school where they have just a need at wide receiver that he can, and he's going to go to a quarterback. I would think that because of the position that the wide receiver's in, where he's more dependent on another player, meaning the quarterback, than any other position on the field, that if I'm in the transfer portal or thinking about entering the transfer portal, I'm looking at quarterback situation. If I'm a wide receiver, I'm looking at the wide receiver room to see, okay, this is a great program with a great team, but they're a little weak at wide receiver this year, but they've got an excellent quarterback, because that's what I need to help my draft position, is the quarterback who can get me the ball. And I also need the offense that's going to get me the ball.
Right.
I don't know why he would be leaving Clemson with all that in mind.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, but that's why I thought that's what the rules were. Started at. Not saying it's going to happen. I don't see why he would leave either. Because and then he also has excellent receivers around him. They're not going to be able to double team him, so and he's going to be playing in the slot this year, so that might help him out too. I mean, the Clemson. I know everybody says Oklahoma and Ohio State by far are the two best, but I think Clemson's probably third behind those two teams in the nation for as wide receiver. I haven't seen Oklahoma play in a while, but everybody keeps saying that everybody had the best wide receiver group in the country. Like I said, Clemson might be third, behind those two.
Yeah, I think they're the top three.
I don't understand why he would leave that. You saying they are?
I believe they are.
Oh, wow.
I can't think of anybody else that would crack that top three besides Alabama.
Yeah, and they had to get Ohio State transferred to crack top three this year, right? Yeah. Like I said, I haven't really looked at everybody else's roster, but I haven't heard anybody talk about this situation. So you got Parks that might start at left tackle or right tackle. You got Matt Fatton, who's a senior. What's the plan with Travis Lay? He was the number one of the top left tackles coming into to college this year. He was a 5-star, top 35 player.
Oh, Tristan Lee.
On where you want to read it.
Tristan Lee.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what Clemson is going to do. The Clemson has had a history of red shirting these guys. So I wondered it because when I saw his stats, he's like 6'6", 270. So I'm like, is Clemson trying to put weight on him? What's the game plan with Lee? What do you think about that situation? I mean, he could start when the Fatton's gone, but I was just wondering what you thought about that. Because that's one of Clemson's weaknesses right there, is the offensive line.
What, as to whether he's going to be a starter as a true freshman?
Well, I thought about, do you think they're going to play him this year? I mean, I know that's something I probably have talked to Jason about more than you, because Jason's the insider. But I just wonder what his position is going to be this year.
And I'm guessing he was an early enrollee. I'm thinking if he was on campus early, that's going to help him considerably as an offensive lineman be ready to play this year. You there, DeAndre? I think we lost DeAndre. All right.
No, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm here, Mark.
Okay. I think we lost you there for a minute. But that's my only thought, is that especially at the offensive line position, is that being an early enrollee would help him considerably over if he was just stepping on the field for the first time the first week of August.
I got them. And one thing else I'd like to say, Mark, well, two things. I'll let you go. Clemson is still really young this year. They're going to be competing for a national championship this year, but next year, their team is, even with the loss, if we think about it, Justin Ross probably the only big loss next year is him. And you know, a couple of the defensive ends, but their backups are just as good. So, you know, Clemson's going to be competing for a while for national championships. I know DJ probably leave after his junior year. And if you said that Miami is a 17-point underdog to Alabama, I think that's what you said. The
Yes.
Vegas got. I think I won't take that.
You're going to take Alabama. Who are you going to take?
I'm going to take the point.
Oh, you're going to take Miami in the points?
Yeah, I'll take Miami in the points. I'll tell you why. And don't get me wrong, I think Alabama's going to win the game, but I think it's going to be like 14-point win or a 10-point win. You're still breaking in a new quarterback. I don't know what King's situation is, but I think Miami's pretty decent to keep it that close. I mean, you still breaking in a new offensive coordinator and stuff like that, so you don't know how the communication is going to go wrong, right or wrong in that game. And you're breaking in a new quarterback, new running back, and you know you got to replace some of them offensive linemen, I believe. So early in the year, first game of the year, Miami needs to put on a show to show that at least they compete with the big boys. And so, you know, because every time they went up against Clemson, they got ran off the field. Or, you know, even Carolina, who's more on their level. So I think I'm going to take the point. I think Miami's going to show up that game.
I'm thinking back to Alabama teams that broke in new quarterbacks in 2011, 2014, 2015, 2016, talking about A.J. McCarron, Blake Sims, Jake Coker, and Jalen Hurts. And with Jalen Hurts, he actually didn't win the job, but he came in the second quarter, first or second quarter, when Blake Barnett, I believe, was the starting quarterback against USC, and they just destroyed USC in that game.
Yeah. And I think USC was breaking out brand new coach too, wasn't it? Brand new quarterback at that time.
Yeah, their starting quarterback. Well, they eventually went to Sam Darnold in the third or fourth game against Utah, but they started. Was it Max Brown? I believe was the starting quarterback. And both teams went to different quarterbacks and had much better success within a couple of weeks. But man, I'm going to trust Alabama to cover those points.
I just, like I said, I'm not picking them guys to win. I'm just saying I think they're going to have an opportunity to keep it close. I mean, like I said, I don't know Miami roster like that, but I just think they're going to keep it close. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. I know Alabama's a boxer, but I just think they're going to keep it close. I know I said that was my last comment. Are you going with Oklahoma as number one to start the season off this year?
I don't know. That's not going to come out until August. My initial top 25 that I released after the national championship game, I put Oklahoma 4 and Georgia 1.
Georgia won to start the year off?
Sure. Huh. Now, a few things have changed. A few things have changed since then. Their best wide receiver got hurt.
Right. Yeah, and they lost a lot of people out their defense in the secondary, right?
Their secondary, yeah.
And the offensive line, too. Now, I know
two starting offensive linemen. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who I listen to, but y'all said that their offensive line is. I know they recruit ridiculously at that area, so they're gonna have the guys to go replace those guys. But I was hearing that was a concern for them coming into the season.
Oh yeah,
was their offensive line, the secondary. That's why I say. I mean, this is Georgia and Clemson, right? When they play each other, if you look at teams that gave Clemson trouble, like Joe Burrow, what's my boy name? Fields, even King, I know the game was out of hand, and Ian Book, they could move. It's going to be interesting to see if this guy can move at Georgia, because if he can't move, he's going to have a lot of issues. I don't know if you remember that Auburn Clemson game, like maybe a couple of years ago. I think Clemson sat Auburn like 12 or 13 times.
Yeah, I think it was 11, but whatever it was, Jarrett Stidham, they only gave up 6 points.
Yeah, and you look at that, and like I said, to me, this defense is more talented as far as 5 or 4 stars coming in that already done played and got a taste of it, and they had to play last year. Clemson was still one of the best defenses in the nation by the end. I just don't like the man chance. And I say Georgia, because Georgia got some hell of a running backs, but I mean, it's going to be very hard for them to do that. That's why I say it's kind of sad that you pick Georgia. But everybody, all the buzz on the internet is Oklahoma this, Oklahoma that. Everybody says Oklahoma has no weaknesses this year. They got their defense together like they're supposed to be the squad. So I'm interested to see that. And they got a heck of a coach.
JT Daniels is not a statue, but he cannot move as well as any of the quarterbacks that you mentioned.
Yeah. You say he can or cannot?
Cannot.
You said, oh, yeah. Yeah, he's going to have a hard time if he's just going to stand back there and can't move. Because Stidham got absolutely wrecked. And I think Robinson was on that Auburn team on the offensive line, and he was a first-round pick. I mean, they tried to move him to left tackle without probably the problem. I think he ended up back up at right tackle. He's doing pretty good now, but, I mean, it was lighting Auburn up. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do. But I keep listening to the show, Mark. Hey, everybody, give Mark $2, man. Give Mark $2.
Well, DeAndre, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the super chat, and always appreciate you calling.
All right, Mark.
I'm going to guess from the voice recognition here that we've got McD calling in here. We shall soon find out. Welcome to the Voice of College Football.
You guessed correctly.
There we go. I just saw sports. That's all it gave me.
Okay.
Before you make your first comment, McD, I did want to get to the comment on the screen real quick, just because, as you know, McD, we correct any inaccurate information. So I call people out when they make inaccurate statements on the screen. So Tim Tebow did not defeat Ohio State. That was, of course, Chris Leak. Tim Tebow came in and threw a touchdown pass when the game was out of hand, but he didn't win the game. All right, McD, what you got?
Okay, I really only have 2 things for you. The first question I was going to ask was involving the betting lines. The Maryland West Virginia game for Week 1, that's in College Park. That line did not come out, and I just want to know your thoughts on what you think that line will be whenever it does come out. Personally, I think that it should be Maryland plus 3.5.
Oh, you said 3.5. I thought you put 5.5 in the chat. I'm going to go more like 2.5, but I'm right there with you.
I mean, I'm a Maryland Terps fan for all your viewers watching this, and I do think we should be underdogs going into that game. So I'm not being biased. And I actually have 2 other quick things that I want to get into. And one's just a public service announcement. But Mark, do you know that Maryland is bringing back the most experienced team in the Big Ten and is not even close? I believe it might even be the most experienced Power 5 team coming back, or like in the top 3.
Okay. Well, anytime I hear something like that, 2 things come to mind. Number one, are we talking about production? So there's obviously going to be a certain amount of production that comes with the most of the starters coming back, but I am just questioning the production part of that. And number 2, when you've got a marginal team, and I'm being somewhat kind, and the production or the starters come back, is that a good thing?
Well, I got this from the Steve Days Michigan podcast, so that's where I picked it up from. But I do think it's going to be a good thing. I think we're going bowling, Mark. I really do. And if we don't go bowling, I'll be the first person on here probably calling for Mike Loxley's job. So,
my buddy Mike
that's
Loxley.
the expectation from me.
Well,
yeah,
we've sized this up before. And again, I don't recall who they play in the Big Ten Western Division, nor do they have any other difficult non-conference games besides West Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, they play in the Big Ten West Division. I know we play Minnesota, Iowa, and Illinois. Yeah, Illinois out of the Big Ten West Division. So I think we're right there with Minnesota. I mean, we beat them 45-44 last year. So we should beat Illinois. Iowa's going to be kind of a tricky game, but I believe the game is in College Park. So hopefully there's full crowds, and we'll see what happens there.
I think your formula is 4-5 in the Big Ten and 2-1 out of conference. And you certainly could win all the non-conference games, but it's conservative to say that you go.
All the non-conference games.
Well, even if you go 2-1 and you go 4-5 in the Big Ten, then you're 6-6, and you're in good shape.
Yeah. And I'm going to call you about something else that Steve Days convinced me on that's going to probably upset you because involving the college football playoffs.
Uh-oh.
But I just
I don't get easily upset, but I think you know where my trigger points are. But I'll talk about that at future call. But future call! You're going to set me up for a future call. Little tease there for everyone. McD's going to upset me with a comment that he's going to make coming up. All right, I'll be looking forward to that.
only because it's going to take it might take a minute, like 20, 30 minutes to explain the whole thing.
Okay.
I'm only a few minutes in, but and one other quick note I want to make is that I don't know if you saw it or not, but Bob Stoops is replacing Urban Meyer on the Fox News kickoff game,
sure,
pregame coverage. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I did.
Okay. I think that's good. But anyways, basically just wanted to come on here and say that Maryland should be dogs against West Virginia, even though I think you're going to see an upset week 1 because Maryland needs to start winning. I mean, it's been 4 years, Mark. We need to at least get in a bowl game. But anyways, thanks for taking my call. Go Terps for being West Virginia week 1.
Appreciate it, McD. Have a good one. All right, Falconer X, thank you so much once again for the Super Chat contribution. Appreciate that so much. I believe our phone lines dropped here, unfortunately. I don't know why that just happened. But Falconer X, thank you so much. At $1,000,000 to 1, I would bet $250 for my Canes to win the Natty. You know what? Hey, if you get $250 to blow, go right ahead and go for it. Or you could transfer that $250 to me, Falconer Falconer X, and we could invest that wisely. We could do that. All right. I'm going to explain this one more time. It's just me, Tim79. I get your point that, yeah, I'm guessing I've seen as many camera angles of that play in 2016 as everybody else has. I am saying that when you have a football in your hand and you're upright and then you're being tackled and you're coming down, that it's impossible to spot the football exactly correctly. It's just impossible. To the inch, to the nth degree. And does that really matter from play to play? No. If you put the football here and it's really supposed to be here, that doesn't necessarily matter from play to play. And the center takes the ball and he moves it about, 3 or 4 inches anyway when the next play snapped. But on that play, it mattered. And no, nobody can tell me that we know exactly where the ball's supposed to be spotted and should be spotted on almost any play. Exactly to the inch, I mean. No, nobody could convince me of that. And I'm not saying that the officials got it wrong. I'm not saying that Ohio State did not make the first down. I'm saying we don't know. The officials did the best job they did. I don't think they missed it. I don't think they did anything egregiously wrong. I'm just saying that they made the decision they made to the best of their ability. And if the outcome was exactly the opposite, I would say the same thing. All right. I can see whom everybody enjoys seeing here on the show. It's good to know that I choose quality guests. All right. Somebody hates me. Good to know. All right. Oh, okay. Are we talking about crediting Tim Tebow as the starting quarterback against Ohio State in the 2006 national championship game? He was not the starting quarterback. He played a couple meaningful plays and a lot of meaningless plays in the game. Did he contribute to the win? Yes. Chris Leak was the starting quarterback. All right, everyone. It was great to have everyone, and maybe we didn't completely fulfill our quest of going through these betting lines that have been released in the last couple of days, but it was a fun discussion with everyone. Thank you for everyone who called. And keep in mind that we've got content coming your way every day. I posted a live stream that we did about a week ago explaining how the content's going to be delivered upcoming. Call-in shows, analytics, national topics here on the main channel. If you love a particular team, and keep in mind that's Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Nebraska, Wisconsin, it's Texas and Oklahoma, it's the entire SEC, plus team channels at Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU, Auburn, USC and Oregon, Clemson, North Carolina, Miami, Florida State, and Notre Dame. Then check out those channels and please subscribe. If you're helping us build the channel, please go to voiceofcollegefootball.com and register for free right there. Voiceofcollegefootball.com. I tell you guys this all the time, being completely transparent about it. All that we have to offer there right now is links back to all the channels and all the content, but we're going to blow it out big there on our website at voiceofcollegefootball.com here soon. So please register for free there. Also, if you want to help us out, in particular, to build the platform here and make sure that the Voice of College Football is coming your way for a long, long time, go to the channels that are nearing 1,000 subscribers. That would be Nebraska and Oregon in particular, and please subscribe there. Oregon and Nebraska. And you know what? Once we pass 1,000 subs and get up to the 1,100 or 1,200 range, you can unsubscribe. That would be fine. All right, everyone. We appreciate it. Keep those notifications going so you know when we're going live and when new content is posted right here at the Voice of College Football. Have a great weekend.